In the shadowed underbelly of Chicago's silence is a currency, and secrets are often paid for in blood. Daniel Valenti, the city's most ruthless don, thought he had buried his past along with his family's tragedies. But fate has a twisted sense of humor. When a terrified waitress in a crumbling diner accidentally drops a cheap silver locket, the sound echoes louder than a gunshot. The face inside that locket doesn't belong to a lover or a father. It belongs to a ghost. Daniel Valenti is about to discover that the dead don't always stay dead, and the woman serving his coffee holds the key to a kingdom built on lies. This is the story of how a dropped locket started a war. Rain lashed against the cracked windowpane of the Rusty Spoon, a diner that smelled perpetually of burnt bacon and stale cigarette smoke. Located on the forgotten edge of the South Side, it was the kind of place where people went to disappear, or where they ended up when they had nowhere else to go. Lily Harper wiped the Formica counter with a grey rag, her movements mechanical. At 23, she had the weary eyes of someone twice her age. Her uniform, a pale blue dress that had seen better days, hung loosely on her frame. She checked the clock on the wall. 11:45 p.m. 15 minutes until she could lock the doors, take the bus back to her drafty studio apartment on 4th Street, and try to forget that she was barely making rent. "Lily Table 4 needs a refill on the decaf. Move it!" Stan the owner barked from the kitchen pass-through. Stan was a man made of grease and grievances, always yelling, always sweating. Lily nodded, tucking a stray lock of blonde hair behind her ear. "On it, Stan." She grabbed the pot, the heat radiating against her palm. The diner was mostly empty, save for an old trucker named Earl sleeping in the back booth and a couple arguing in hushed tones near the door. But then the bell above the entrance chimed. It wasn't a gentle ring. It sounded sharp, like a warning. 3 men walked in. The atmosphere in the diner shifted instantly. The air grew heavy, charged with a sudden suffocating static. These weren't the usual clientele. They wore suits that cost more than the entire building, Italian silk tailored to perfection, dark as midnight. The rain slid off their shoulders, as if afraid to touch them. The man in the center was terrifying. He was tall with broad shoulders that filled the doorway. His hair was slicked back, dark and severe, highlighting the sharp angles of his face and the cold, calculating darkness of his eyes. A faint, jagged scar ran through his left eyebrow, interrupting the perfection of his features. He didn't look like a customer. He looked like a judge, arriving to deliver a sentence. This was Daniel Valenti. Even Lily, who kept her head down and avoided the news, knew the name. The Valenti family ran the docks, the unions, and half the politicians in the city. They were untouchable. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. Just serve them. Don't look them in the eye. Get them out. Daniel slid into a booth near the window, his back to the wall. His 2 associates, men with necks like tree trunks and eyes that scanned the room for threats, sat opposite him. "Coffee. Black," Daniel said. His voice was a low rumble, smooth, but dangerous, like a luxury car idling before a drag race. Lily approached the table, her hands trembling. She poured the coffee into the thick white mugs, praying she wouldn't spill a drop. The aroma of expensive cologne, sandalwood, and steel overpowered the smell of grease. "Is there anything else I can get you?" Lily asked, her voice barely a whisper. Daniel didn't look up. He was checking his phone, scrolling through messages with lethal efficiency. "No." One of the bodyguards, a man with a broken nose, leered at her. "Maybe a smile, sweetheart." Lily forced a tight grimace and turned to leave. As she pivoted, the heel of her worn-out sneaker caught on a loose tile. She stumbled. It happened in slow motion. Lily threw her hands out to catch herself on the edge of the table. The coffee pot stayed secure in her right hand, but the sudden jerk caused the clasp of the silver chain around her neck to snap. Clink. The locket fell. It hit the linoleum floor with a sound that seemed deafening in the silent diner. It spun like a coin, the cheap silver catch springing open upon impact. Lily gasped, scrambling to her knees to retrieve it. It was her most prized possession. Her only possession that mattered. But a hand large and manicured got there first. Daniel Valenti had moved with the speed of a viper. He snatched the locket from the floor before Lily could touch it. "Please," Lily stammered, looking up at him from the floor. "Please, that's mine. Give it back." Daniel didn't answer. He was staring at the open locket resting in his palm. His face, previously an impassive mask of indifference, went violently pale. His eyes widened, the pupils contracting into pinpricks of shock. Inside the locket was a small, grainy photograph. It showed two young men, arms slung around each other's shoulders, laughing in front of a classic 1969 Mustang. Daniel slowly raised his eyes from the silver oval to the trembling waitress on the floor. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The bodyguards sensed the shift. Their hands went instantly to the bulges inside their jackets. "Where did you get this?" Daniel's voice was no longer smooth. It was a jagged edge of suppressed rage. Lily swallowed hard, terror gripping her throat. It's just a picture. Please, sir." Daniel stood up, towering over her. He loomed like a thunderhead. He thrust the locket toward her face, his finger pointing at the man on the right side of the photo. The man who looked remarkably like Daniel, but with a softer jawline and a brighter smile. "This man," Daniel hissed, shaking the locket. "This is Matteo Valenti, my brother." Lily's blood ran cold. "He died 4 years ago." Daniel continued, his voice rising, cracking the silence of the diner. "His body was never found. This photo, this was taken the day he disappeared. I took this photo." He leaned down, grabbing Lily by the upper arm and hauling her to her feet with bruising force. "So tell me, little waitress, why are you carrying my dead brother's face around your neck?" The rusty spoon was frozen. Even Stan, usually so vocal, was cowering behind the pass-through window, pretending to clean a grill that was already scraped raw. The only sound was the rain drumming against the roof and Lily's ragged breathing. I found it," Lily lied. It was a terrible lie, weak and transparent. Daniel's grip on her arm tightened. He wasn't hurting her, not yet. But the promise of violence was there, simmering just beneath the surface of his expensive suit. "You found it. You found a locket with a private family photo inside. A photo that was in my brother's wallet the night he vanished." "I don't know who Matteo is," Lily cried out, tears pricking her eyes. "Let me go." "Boss," the bodyguard with the broken nose said, stepping forward cautiously. "We shouldn't do this here. Too many eyes. The cook is watching." Daniel didn't look at his man. His gaze was locked on Lily's blue eyes, searching for a flicker of recognition, a hint of deceit. He saw fear, yes, but he also saw something else. Defiance. She was terrified, but she wasn't breaking. "You're coming with us," Daniel announced. It wasn't a question. "No, I can't leave. My shift isn't over. Stan! Stan!" Daniel shouted without turning his head. Yes, Mr. Valenti," Stan squeaked from the kitchen. "Your waitress is quitting. Tonight. She receives her full severance and you never saw us here. Do you understand?" "Yes, absolutely. She's gone. Never saw a thing." Lily felt her heart sink. She had just been sold out for the price of safety. Daniel began to drag her towards the door. Lily dug her heels in her sneakers, squeaking on the linoleum. "You can't just kidnap me. This is America. People will notice." Daniel stopped and spun her around, pinning her with his gaze. "You have something that belongs to the Valenti family. Until I know how you got it, and if you know where my brother is buried, or if he's even dead, you belong to me. Now you can walk to the car, or Luca here can throw you over his shoulder. Your choice." Lily looked at Luca, the massive bodyguard. He cracked his knuckles. She swallowed her scream and nodded. "I'll walk." The ride was a blur of city lights and terror. They shoved her into the back of a black Mercedes S-Class. The leather was soft. The interior smelled of new money. But to Lily, it felt like a hearse. Daniel sat next to her, the locket still clenched in his fist. He didn't speak for a long time. He just stared at the road ahead, his jaw clenched so hard a muscle feathered in his cheek. Lily pressed herself against the door, trying to make herself as small as possible. She knew she should keep her mouth shut. She knew these men killed people for looking at them the wrong way. But the silence was driving her mad. "He gave it to me," she whispered. Daniel's head snapped toward her. "What did you say? The locket?" Lily said, her voice trembling, but gaining strength. He gave it to me. He said if I was ever in trouble, I should look at it and remember that someone loved me." Daniel turned fully in his seat. The streetlights passing by cast rhythmic shadows across his face, making him look like a demon one second and a grieving man the next. "You mean Matteo?" "I knew him as Matt," Lily said quietly. "He didn't tell me his last name. He said names were dangerous." Daniel let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "That sounds like him. Always the dramatic romantic." When did you meet him?" 4 years ago," Lily said. "I was 19. I was working at a diner in Jersey City. He came in every night for 2 weeks. He looked hunted, scared." Daniel's expression softened just for a fraction of a second before hardening again. "Matteo disappeared from Chicago. We tracked his car to the river. We found blood. We assumed the rival family, the Sorvinos, had taken him out. We went to war because of it." "Are you telling me he was in New Jersey eating pie while I was burying bodies in his name?" "I don't know about any war," Lily said. "I just know he was kind, and he was scared of his brother." The air in the car vanished. Daniel went still. "Scared of me?" "He said his brother was a king who ruled with an iron fist." Lily recounted the memories flooding back. "He said his brother expected him to be a soldier, but he just wanted to be free." Daniel looked away, staring out the window at the passing skyline. The rain had intensified, blurring the world outside into streaks of grey and gold. For a moment, the feared Mafia Don looked incredibly human. "He wasn't scared of me," Daniel said, his voice low. "He was scared of the life. I was trying to protect him from it." "He didn't think so," Lily murmured. "Shut up," Daniel snapped, but there was no heat in it, just exhaustion. The car slowed down as they approached a massive iron gate. They had left the city behind and were entering the exclusive estate district of Barrington Hills. The gate swung open, revealing a sprawling mansion that looked more like a fortress than a home. "Where are we?" Lily asked. "My home," Daniel said, "or your prison. Depends on how much truth you tell me in the next hour." The car stopped in front of the grand entrance. Luca opened the door and gestured for Lily to get out. The rain soaked her uniform instantly. Daniel stepped out and walked up the stairs, not waiting for her. "Bring her to the study," he ordered Luca. "And get Dr. Aris. I want a DNA test run immediately." Lily froze on the bottom step. "DNA test for what?" Daniel turned back, standing at the top of the stairs like a dark prince. Thunder rumbled overhead, shaking the ground beneath Lily's feet. "You said you knew him 4 years ago," Daniel said, his eyes scanning her face, looking for familiar features he might have missed. "You said you were close. If my brother was hiding in New Jersey living a secret life, I need to know what else he left behind." He paused, his gaze dropping to Lily's stomach, then back to her eyes. Matteo. He didn't just give lockets to waitresses, Miss Harper. He fell in love easily. If you were his lover, I need to know. And if you know who actually killed him because he clearly isn't in New Jersey anymore, you are going to tell me. Even if I have to tear this city apart to verify it. Lily shivered, not from the cold, but from the realization of what was happening. She wasn't just a witness. She was a loose end in a mystery that had started a Mafia war. "I wasn't his lover," Lily said, her voice barely audible over the rain. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Then why did he give you the family heirloom?" Lily bit her lip. This was the secret she had kept for 4 years. The secret that had kept her moving from town to town. "Because," she whispered, "he told me to give it to his son." Daniel froze. The world seemed to stop. "His son," Daniel repeated the words foreign in his mouth. "I don't have his son," Lily added quickly, panic rising. "But I know where he is, and I know who took him." The study of the Valenti estate was a room designed to intimidate. The walls were lined with dark mahogany bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes that had likely never been read. A massive fireplace roared on one side, casting flickering shadows that danced like restless spirits across the Persian rug. Daniel poured himself a glass of amber whiskey from a crystal decanter. His hand, usually steady enough to perform surgery or pull a trigger, trembled slightly. He downed the drink in one burn and slammed the glass onto his heavy oak desk. "Talk," Daniel ordered. He didn't sit. He paced behind the desk like a caged panther. "And if I sense even a whisper of a lie, you will wish you had stayed at the Rusty Spoon." Lily stood in the center of the room, shivering in her wet waitress uniform. The luxury around her felt alien, a sharp contrast to the peeling wallpaper of her own life. "His name is Leo," Lily began, her voice gaining traction. "He just turned 3 last month." Daniel stopped pacing. 3. The timeline fits. Matteo disappeared 4 years ago. He was in Jersey, having a child. "He met my sister Sarah," Lily explained, the grief fresh in her voice. "I was living with her in Jersey City. Matt Matteo rented the room above us. He was quiet, always looking over his shoulder. Sarah fell for him hard. He told us he was in trouble, that bad men were looking for him because he refused to do something terrible." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Refused to do what?" "He said his family wanted him to kill a man he considered a friend. He couldn't do it. So he ran." Daniel gripped the edge of the desk until his knuckles turned white. "That's a lie. I never ordered Matteo to make a hit. I kept him out of the business. He was the clean one. He was supposed to go to law school." "Well, someone ordered it." Lily countered, her protective instinct overriding her fear. "And someone came for him the night Leo was born. They found us." Lily closed her eyes, the memory assaulting her. "It was raining just like tonight. Sarah went into labor early. We were at the apartment. Matt was packing the car to get us to the hospital. 2 men kicked down the door. They weren't wearing masks. They wanted Matt to know who they were. "Did you see them?" Daniel demanded, leaning forward. "I saw one. Tall. Bald. He had a tattoo of a scorpion on his neck. He shot Matt in the leg first." Lily's voice broke. "Matt screamed at me to take Sarah and run. He fought them with his bare hands. He bought us 5 minutes. I dragged Sarah down the fire escape. We heard the gunshots stop, and then we heard them laughing." Daniel's face was a mask of torture. He closed his eyes, visualizing his little brother, the gentle student fighting off hit men to save a woman and child. "Sarah died during childbirth in a back-alley clinic an hour later," Lily whispered, tears streaming down her face. "She made me promise to protect the baby. She made me promise to keep him hidden from the Valentis. She said your family brings nothing but death." Daniel flinched, as if slapped. "So I took Leo," Lily continued. "I moved every 6 months. I changed my name. I worked cash jobs. I came to Chicago 3 months ago because I ran out of money, and I heard the Valenti enemies had been crushed. I thought, maybe it was safe. Or maybe I just wanted to see the man Matt was so afraid of. Where is the boy?" Daniel's voice was hoarse. "He's with my neighbor, Mrs. Gable. She watches him when I work night shifts. Let's go." Daniel walked around the desk, grabbing a heavy black trench coat. "You can't just storm in there with guns," Lily warned, stepping in his path. "He's a baby. You'll scare him." Daniel stopped looking down at her. For the first time, he saw her not as a waitress, but as a warrior who had survived a war he didn't even know was being fought. "I won't bring guns," Daniel said softly. "I just want to see him." The drive to Lily's apartment was silent. The rain had turned into a deluge, flooding the gutters of the tenement district. The black Mercedes looked like a spaceship landed in a junkyard as it pulled up to the crumbling brick building on 4th Street. Daniel signaled for his driver and Luca to stay in the car. "Just us," he told Lily. They walked up 4 flights of stairs that smelled of boiled cabbage and mildew. Lily fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking. She unlocked door 4B. Inside the apartment was tiny. A single room served as a kitchen, living area, and bedroom. But it was clean. There were colorful drawings taped to the cracked walls. A small second-hand crib sat in the corner. An elderly woman, Mrs. Gable, was dozing in the only armchair. She woke with a start as they entered. "Lily, you're early. Who is this?" Mrs. Gable squinted at Daniel, clutching her shawl. "It's okay, Mrs. Gable. This is family." Lily said the word, tasting strange on her tongue. "Is Leo asleep? Out like a light. He was asking for you." Daniel walked past them, moving toward the crib, with a reverence usually reserved for cathedrals. He looked down. Sleeping on a mattress that was too thin, wrapped in a blanket that had been patched 3 times, was a toddler with curly dark hair. He was clutching a stuffed bear that was missing an eye. The boy stirred, sensing a presence. He opened his eyes. Daniel let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. The eyes looking back at him were identical to his own. They were the Valenti eyes, dark, intense, framed by thick lashes. But the chin was Matteo's. "Leo," Daniel whispered. The boy sat up, rubbing his eyes. He looked at Daniel, then past him to Lily. "Lily!" "I'm here, baby," Lily said, rushing to scoop him up. She held him tight, smelling his hair, grounding herself. "Who dat?" Leo pointed a chubby finger at Daniel. Daniel reached out a hand, hesitating. He had ordered hits, negotiated $1 million deals, and buried enemies. But reaching out to this child terrified him. He gently touched the boy's small hand. "I'm your Uncle Dom," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Leo stared at him. Then surprisingly he smiled. It was Matteo's smile. "Unca Dom," Leo repeated. Daniel turned to Lily. His eyes were wet, but his expression was fierce. "Pack his things. Everything. You're leaving this place. Tonight." "I can't just—" "Lily." Daniel interrupted his voice, leaving no room for argument. "My brother died protecting this boy. I will burn the world down before I let him sleep in a drafty room for one more night. You are coming with me, both of you." He looked around the squalid apartment, guilt gnawing at his gut. While he sat on a throne of gold, his own flesh and blood had been sleeping in poverty. "Luca!" Daniel shouted down the stairwell. The bodyguard thundered up the stairs. "Boss! Get the bags, and pay Mrs. Gable. Give her enough to retire." As they walked out into the rain, Daniel took off his trench coat and draped it over Lily and Leo. He shielded them from the storm with his own body. But as he ushered them into the car, his mind was already racing. Lily had mentioned a bald man with a scorpion tattoo. Daniel knew every hitman in Chicago. He knew every soldier in the tri-state area. He had never heard of a scorpion tattoo, which meant the killer wasn't a local grunt. It was a hired professional. And professionals cost money, serious money. Who had paid to kill Matteo Valenti? The return to the Valenti estate was different this time. The gates didn't feel like the entrance to a prison. They felt like the drawbridge of a fortress being raised against the night. Daniel had the east wing of the mansion opened up. It hadn't been used since his parents died. Maids were scrambled at 200 a.m. to prepare a nursery and a suite for Lily. "You'll sleep here," Daniel told Lily, showing her into a room that was larger than her entire apartment. It had a 4-poster bed and a balcony overlooking the gardens. "Leo's room connects through that door." Lily placed a sleeping Leo in the new ornate crib. She looked at Daniel, who was standing in the doorway watching them. "Thank you," she said quietly. "But this doesn't fix everything. Whoever killed Matt, they are still out there." "I know," Daniel said. His eyes were cold again, the softness of the nursery gone. "Tomorrow morning I'm calling a meeting of the capos, my inner circle. If someone ordered a hit on my brother, it came from inside. I need you to stay in this room. Do not open the door for anyone but me or Luca." Daniel turned to leave, but stopped. "Lily." "Yes." "You saved him. You gave up your life for 4 years to save my brother's son." Daniel looked at her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "The Valenti family pays its debts. You will never want for anything again." He closed the door. Lily didn't feel relieved. She felt a knot of dread in her stomach. She walked to the window and looked out at the dark grounds. She kept touching the empty space on her neck where the locket used to be. The next morning, the Valenti mansion was buzzing with tension. Black SUVs lined the driveway. The family had arrived. Daniel sat at the head of the long table in the conference room. The air was thick with cigar smoke. 5 men sat around the table, his top lieutenants. There was Sal, the enforcer who ran the docks, Benny, the union rep, Arthur, the consigliere, who had served Daniel's father, Grant, the treasurer, who managed the casinos, and Victor, a young, ambitious capo running the downtown district. "Why the emergency meeting, Dom?" Grant asked. He was a smooth man, wearing a suit that cost more than a car. He was adjusting his cufflinks, looking bored. "We have a problem," Daniel said, leaning back in his chair. He watched their faces carefully. "I received new intelligence regarding Matteo." The room went silent. Matteo. Arthur, the old consigliere, adjusted his glasses. Daniel, we buried an empty casket 4 years ago. We wiped out the Sorvinos. It's done. It's not done, Daniel said. I found a witness. Matteo wasn't killed by the Sorvinos. He was hunted down by a pro. Daniel threw a file folder onto the table. It was empty, a bluff. The witness gave me a description of the shooter. Bald, scorpion tattoo on the neck. He watched their reactions. Sal shrugged. Never heard of him. Benny shook his head. Arthur looked confused. But Grant? Grant's eyes flickered. It was a micro-expression, a split second of panic, before he masked it with a frown. He reached for his water glass, his hand moving a little too quickly. A scorpion? Grant asked, taking a sip. Sounds like a cartel hitter. Maybe Matteo got mixed up in drugs down south. Maybe. Daniel set his gaze lingering on Grant. Or maybe someone paid a freelancer to keep it off the books. Suddenly the door to the conference room burst open. It was Lily. She was holding Leo, looking frantic. Luca was right behind her, looking apologetic. Boss, I couldn't stop her, Luca said. She heard voices. I need to talk to you, Lily said, her eyes scanning the room, filled with dangerous men. She froze when her gaze landed on Grant. Grant turned in his chair. When he saw Lily, the color drained from his face. He recognized her, not from the diner but from the photo. The photo his hitmen had shown him 4 years ago. The one they failed to kill. And then he saw the boy. Get her out of here. Grant stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Daniel, this is a breach of security. Who is this woman? Lily pointed a shaking finger at Grant. You. The room went deadly quiet. Excuse me, Grant sneered, though sweat was beading on his forehead. I know your voice, Lily said, stepping into the room, clutching Leo tighter. I heard you on the phone 4 years ago. Daniel stood up slowly. Lily, be very careful what you say next. The night Matt died, Lily said, her voice ringing clear. Before the men broke in, Matt was on the phone. He was begging someone to call off the hit. He put it on speaker so Sarah could hear. The man on the other end laughed. He said, the crown is too heavy for 2 heads, kid. Daniel needs to be the only one. Lily looked directly into Grant's eyes. That was your voice, and you called him the spare. Grant's hand moved to his jacket pocket. Don't! Daniel roared, drawing his own weapon from his holster with blinding speed. But Grant didn't pull a gun. He pulled a small remote detonator. Nobody move! Grant screamed, his smooth veneer shattering into desperation. The whole room is rigged. I knew this day would come. I knew you'd find out. The other capos jumped up, drawing their weapons, but they froze at the sight of the detonator. You... Daniel hissed, his gun trained on Grant's head. You were my father's friend. You watched Matteo grow up. And I watched him get soft. Grant shouted, saliva flying. He was going to go to the feds. Daniel, he found the skimming in the casino books. He was going to turn me in. I did it for the family. I did it to save us. You did it for yourself, Daniel said, stepping closer. You killed my brother for money. And I'll kill you too, Grant snarled. He looked at Lily and Leo. And the bastard child. I should have made sure the job was done right 4 years ago. Grant, Daniel said, his voice terrifyingly calm. Look at me. You press that button, we all die. But if you put it down, I'll let you walk out of here. Liar, Grant yelled. "You're Daniel Valenti. You don't show mercy." Grant's thumb hovered over the button. His eyes were swan. He was going to do it. Lily saw the desperation in his eyes. She saw the way his focus shifted from Daniel to Leo. He wanted to take the air out first. Lily didn't think. She acted. There was a heavy crystal ashtray on the sideboard next to where she stood, while Grant was screaming at Daniel. Lily shifted Leo to her left, hip, grabbed the heavy crystal block with her right hand, and hurled it with all the strength of a mother protecting her young. It wasn't a perfect throw, but it was enough. The heavy crystal struck Grant square in the temple. He staggered, dazed. His thumb slipped off the detonator. Bang! Daniel didn't hesitate. One shot, center of the forehead. Grant collapsed backward, the detonator clattering harmlessly to the floor. The room was deafeningly silent, save for the ringing in everyone's ears. Leo started to cry, the sound piercing the tension. Daniel lowered his gun. He looked at the dead body of the man he had trusted for 10 years. Then he looked at the waitress standing by the door, breathing hard, her arm still extended. The other capos stared at Lily in shock. She had just taken down a high-ranking mobster with an ashtray. Daniel walked over to her. He didn't check on Grant. He knew the shot was fatal. He holstered his weapon and placed his large hands over Lily's ears, then over Leo's, trying to shield them from the aftermath. "Take them upstairs," Daniel ordered Luca, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. "And then lock down the estate. Grant wasn't working alone. A man like that doesn't have the guts to kill a Valenti unless he has a backer." He looked at Lily, his eyes burning with a mixture of adrenaline and admiration. "You just started a war, Lily," Daniel said softly. "I didn't start it," Lily replied, looking at the dead man, then up at Daniel. "I just finished what Matt couldn't." Daniel nodded slowly. "Go. Take Leo. I have work to do." As Lily was escorted out, she heard Daniel turn to the remaining men. "Find out who Grant was talking to," Daniel ordered, his voice echoing like the judgment of God. "Find out who provided the hitter with the scorpion tattoo, and bring them to me, alive." The locket of the lost Valenti had been found, but the secrets inside it were darker than anyone had imagined, and the scorpion was still out there, waiting to strike again. The gunshot that killed Grant seemed to echo in the halls of the Valenti estate for days. The cleanup was clinical, efficient, and silent. The body disappeared, the carpet was replaced, and the remaining capos fell in line with a terrifying obedience. They had seen the waitress throw the first stone, and they had seen their don execute a traitor without blinking. The hierarchy had been reset in blood. But for Lily Harper, the silence was suffocating. 3 days had passed. The estate was in total lockdown. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter with Rottweilers, and high-tech surveillance drones buzzed silently over the manicured gardens. Lily sat in the nursery watching Leo stack wooden blocks. The sunlight streamed in through the bulletproof glass, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. It looked like a perfect, peaceful afternoon. But Lily knew it was an illusion. They were in the eye of a hurricane. The door creaked open. Daniel stood there. He had traded his suit jacket for a black dress shirt, the sleeves rolled up to reveal muscular forearms covered in faint scars. He looked exhausted. "Is he okay?" Daniel asked, his voice low. "He asks for his bear," Lily said, not looking up from the blocks. "And he asks why the loud man fell down." Daniel flinched. He walked into the room, his presence filling the space. He sat on the floor, something Lily never expected to see a Mafia don do, and picked up a blue block. "I'm sorry he saw that," Daniel said. I wanted to protect him from this life. That's what Matteo wanted. Matteo isn't here, Lily said sharply, finally meeting his eyes. You are, and you're the one who brought us here. I brought you here to keep you alive, Daniel countered, placing the block on Leo's tower. Leo giggled and knocked it over. Daniel's lips quirked into a rare, genuine smile. Grant wasn't working alone, Daniel said, his tone shifting back to business. Arthur cracked his encrypted phone. We found the payments, monthly transfers to an offshore account linked to a shell company in the Caymans. But the messages were local. The Scorpion, Lily asked, a chill running down her spine. His name is Kalen Shaw, Daniel revealed. He's a ghost, former Special Ops dishonorably discharged. He became a mercenary for the highest bidder. He's the one with the scorpion tattoo. He's the one who pulled the trigger on my brother. Lily felt the blood drain from her face. You found him. We found his nest, Daniel said, standing up. An abandoned textile factory in the industrial district. He's been using it as a staging ground. I'm going there tonight. Don't go, Lily said instinctively. She stood up, surprised by her own outburst. Daniel paused, looking at her with an intensity that made her breath hitch. Why are you worried about me, Lily? I'm worried about Leo. She lied, though her heart was pounding. If you die, who protects him? The sharks in your conference room. Daniel stepped closer, invading her personal space. He smelled of rain and gun oil. He reached out his thumb, grazing her cheekbone, where a bruise from the struggle in the diner had finally faded. I won't die, Daniel promised. I have a nephew to raise. And I have other reasons to come back now. The tension between them was electric, thick, and undeniable. For a moment, Lily thought he might kiss her. She didn't know if she would slap him or pull him closer. But then he stepped back, the mask of the Don sliding back into place. Lock the door behind me, he ordered. Luca stays with you. The raid on the textile factory was swift and brutal. Daniel led the charge himself, flanked by Sal and a dozen of his best soldiers. They breached the rusty metal doors with explosives. The factory was a maze of old machinery and hanging chains. Gunfire erupted immediately. Shaw's men were professionals, tactical and precise, but they were outnumbered by the sheer ferocity of the Valenti crew. Daniel moved through the chaos like a wraith, his weapon engaging targets with mechanical precision. He wasn't fighting for territory tonight. He was fighting for a ghost. They cleared the ground floor and moved to the catwalks. Clear! Sal shouted from the east wing. Clear! Shouted another soldier. But Shaw wasn't there. Daniel kicked open the door to the foreman's office, overlooking the factory floor. It was empty, save for a single chair and a laptop sitting on a metal desk. The screen was glowing. Daniel approached it cautiously. On the screen was a live video feed. It was a feed of the Valenti estate gates. Boss, Sal said, stepping into the room, his face pale. This isn't a hideout. It's a surveillance post. They've been watching us. Daniel stared at the screen. He saw the guards at his own gate. He saw the peace of the night. Then on the laptop screen, a chat window popped up. Message from user Scorpion. Text. You look good in black, Daniel, but you shouldn't have left the castle. Daniel's stomach dropped. It was a diversion. The intel from Grant's phone had been planted. They wanted Daniel out of the house. Move! Daniel roared into his radio, sprinting out of the office. Back to the cars. Now call Luca. Tell him to seal the safe room. He dialed Luca's number as he ran down the metal stairs, jumping the last flight. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it was answered. But it wasn't Luca's voice. It was a wet, gurgling sound. The sound of a man trying to breathe through a punctured lung. "Boss?" Luca wheezed. "They came through. The tunnels." The line went dead. Daniel roared a sound of pure animal fury as he burst out of the factory into the rainy night. "Drive. Get me back to the estate drive." 30 minutes before Daniel reached the factory, Lily was reading a storybook to Leo in the nursery. The heavy oak door was locked, and Luca stood guard in the hall. Then the estate went black. The hum of the air conditioning died, and the electronic locks disengaged with a series of mechanical clacks. "Luca!" Lily called out, heart leaping into her throat. "Stay inside, Miss Harper," Luca shouted. "I'm checking the—" His voice was cut off by the sound of a body hitting the floor. The nursery door exploded inward, kicked off its hinges. Blinding tactical lights cut through the darkness. Lily didn't freeze. She scooped up the sleeping Leo and bolted for the connecting door. "Grab the boy," a distorted voice ordered. A gloved hand yanked her hair, dragging her back. Lily screamed, twisting and biting the hand with feral intensity. She managed to break free for a split second, scrambling into the corner, shielding Leo with her body. A figure stepped out from behind the tactical team. He wore no mask. A black scorpion tattoo curled behind his ear. Kalen Shaw. "You have spirit," Shaw said smoothly. "Matteo liked that." "You killed him," Lily spat, backing away. "It was a contract," Shaw shrugged. Just like this. 2 soldiers lunged. Lily kicked and clawed, desperate to protect the child, but a rifle butt slammed into her temple. Pain exploded in her skull. Her grip loosened, and Shaw plucked the screaming toddler from her arms. "Leo." Lily dragged herself across the floor, blood dripping into her eyes. She grabbed Shaw's ankle. "Take me. Please take me instead. He's just a baby." Shaw crouched, bringing his face close to hers. "Daniel Valenti needs to learn that he can't rule alone. The heir is leverage. You are just the incubator." He kicked her hand away. "Leave her. She's the message." As Shaw carried him into the hallway, Leo reached his small arms out. "Mama! Mama!" The word one he had never used for her before shattered Lily's heart. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out, and darkness took her. Lily woke to the sound of rain blowing through the broken window. She crawled into the hallway. Luca was lying there, his chest a mess of red. He looked at her with dying eyes. "I'm sorry," he rasped, taking his final breath. Lily pulled herself up to the window just in time to see a black helicopter banking away into the storm. They had him. They had Matteo's son. 10 minutes later, Daniel's Mercedes screeched to a halt at the front steps. He found the gates open and the guards dead. "Leo!" Daniel roared, taking the stairs 2 at a time. "Lily!" He found her slumped in the hallway beneath the window, staring blankly at the rain. He fell to his knees, his hands hovering over her injuries. "Lily!" he choked out. "Look at me!" She turned her head slowly. Her eyes were hollow, void of light. "They took him," she whispered, voice dead. "The scorpion. He took him. He called me Mama as they dragged him away." Daniel closed his eyes, a tear tracking through the grime on his face. He had failed Matteo again. "I will get him back. I swear to you on my life." Lily's gaze sharpened. The hollow look vanished, replaced by a cold, terrifying rage that mirrored Daniel's own. She reached up and grabbed his shirt, pulling him close. "I don't want your promises, Daniel," she hissed. "I want a gun." Daniel looked at her. The waitress from the Rusty Spoon was gone. In her place was a mother whose cub had been stolen. He nodded slowly and helped her to her feet. "Get up," Daniel said. "We have work to do." He turned to Sal, who had just arrived with reinforcements. "Burn the city down." Daniel ordered, his voice devoid of humanity. "Tear apart every warehouse, every safe house. If anyone gets in your way, kill them." He looked back at Lily, who stood amidst the glass and blood, her face set in stone. "And call the tailor," Daniel added. "She needs clothes that fit a war." Lily Harper didn't evolve slowly. She was forged in fire. In the Valenti armory, the air smelled of steel and oil. Lily had shed the torn waitress uniform for fitted tactical gear and a black leather jacket. She didn't look like a woman who poured coffee anymore. She looked like an avenging angel. Daniel watched her from the doorway, loading a magazine into his pistol. His face was grim. "You don't have to do this. Sal and the team can handle the perimeter. You can stay in the bunker." Lily checked the chamber of a 9mm skill remembered from late nights watching Matteo clean his weapon. "That boy is my son," she said, her voice steady. "Blood makes you relatives, Daniel. Loyalty makes you family. I am not staying behind." Daniel walked over, lowering her weapon gently. "If we go in there, there is no coming back. If we survive, the laws don't apply to you anymore. You will be a Valenti." Lily looked up, eyes cold. "I stopped being Lily Harper the moment I dropped that locket. Let's get our boy." The call came at 3:30 a.m. Daniel put the phone on speaker. "Sure. Pier 42, Old Navy Yard." Kalen Shaw's voice was bored. "Come alone. If I see a single soldier, the boy goes into the water. And the terms, your life for the heirs, the king for the prince." "Done," Daniel said instantly. He hung up and looked at Sal. "It's a suicide mission," Sal warned. "The pier is a kill box." "I know," Daniel said. "That's why I'm walking in the front door alone. Sal, take the East Ridge. Lily, I'm going with you." Lily interrupted her mind, calculating angles like she used to calculate bills. "Shaw expects you to be noble and die. He doesn't expect you to bring a hostage." Daniel frowned. "I don't have a hostage." "Yes, you do," Lily said, pulling the silver chain from her pocket. "You have the locket." The Old Navy Yard was a graveyard of rusted metal. Fog rolled off Lake Michigan, obscuring the skeletal cranes overhead. Daniel walked down the center of Pier 42, hands raised, rain plastering his hair to his skull. At the end of the pier, illuminated by SUV headlights, stood Kalen Shaw. He held a terrified Leo. Standing next to him, smoking a cigar in a camel hair coat, was the employer. It wasn't a rival Don. It was Arthur. Daniel stopped the betrayal tasting like ash. "Arthur, my father's oldest friend." Arthur dropped the cigar, crushing it under his loafer. "You've always been soft, Daniel, just like your father toward the end. And Matteo. Matteo was a liability. He wanted to be a civilian. You can't have a Valenti playing house." "So you killed my brother because he wanted a life?" Daniel's voice shook with suppressed rage. "I pruned the tree so the trunk could grow stronger," Arthur said dismissively. "And now I have to prune you. You compromised our security for a waitress." He gestured to Shaw. "Do it!" Shaw raised his gun to Daniel's chest. "Wait!" Daniel shouted. "You want the legacy?" You can't have it without the key. He held up the silver locket. Matteo didn't just leave a photo. He left the microfilm, the access codes to the offshore accounts, the blackmail files. It's all inside. Arthur's eyes widened. He had been hunting those files for 4 years. Give it to me. Let the boy go, Daniel negotiated. I give you the locket. You let them walk. You kill me. Arthur nodded to Shaw. Get it. Shaw shifted Leo to his left arm gun trained on Daniel and stepped forward. Hand it over. Daniel tossed the locket high into the air. Shaw instinctively reached out to catch it. In that split second, Daniel dropped to the concrete. Simultaneously, a shadow detached itself from the edge of the pier. Lily had climbed the rusted ladder from the freezing water. She vaulted over the railing behind Arthur. Arthur! She screamed. He spun around. Lily raised a flare gun she'd taken from the boat kit and fired point blank into the ground between the men. Boom! Magnesium exploded with the brightness of the sun. Shaw stumbled back, blinded, dropping Leo. Daniel lunged, sliding across the wet concrete. He didn't go for the shooter. He went for the child. He scooped Leo up just as Shaw fired blindly into the smoke. Sal! Now! Daniel roared. From the cranes above, a single shot rang out. Crack! The bullet took Shaw in the shoulder, spinning him around. He dropped his weapon. Arthur scrambled toward the SUV, but Lily was faster. She snatched Shaw's dropped pistol. Her hands shook, but her aim was true. She looked at the man who had ordered the death of the gentleman she loved. This is for Matt, she whispered. She pulled the trigger. Arthur collapsed, screaming a bullet in his leg. Daniel handed Leo to Lily behind the cover of a crate. Don't look, baby. Look at Mama. Daniel walked over to Shaw, who was reaching for a boot knife. Daniel kicked him in the face, flipping him over. You killed my brother, Daniel said. Shaw laughed through bubbling blood. It was a job. You're fired. Daniel shot him once. The scorpion was dead. Daniel turned to Arthur, who was clutching his leg, begging. Daniel, I raised you. Daniel looked down with eyes as cold as the lake. No, you just watched me grow until I was big enough to stab in the back. Sal, Daniel called out. Call the feds. Sal looked confused. The police, we don't talk to cops. We do tonight, Daniel said. Give them Arthur. Give them the weapon that killed Shaw. Tell them Arthur hired a hitman and it went wrong. Let him rot in a supermax prison surrounded by the criminals he thought he was better than. Death is too easy for him. As Sal dragged a screaming Arthur away, Daniel walked back to Lily. She was kneeling, rocking Leo. The rain had stopped. Are you hurt? He asked, touching her face. I'm fine. Lily looked at the carnage, then at Daniel. The fear was gone, replaced by steel resolve. Did we win? Daniel looked at his makeshift family, the warrior mother and the future heir. Yeah, he said softly. We won. Let's go home. 6 months later. The Rusty Spoon was now a trendy bistro, though no one knew the anonymous landlord was a former waitress. At the Valenti estate, the gates were open for a summer garden party. Daniel stood on the balcony, tuxedo jacket unbuttoned, looking relaxed. A woman stepped up beside him. Lily wore a stunning emerald gown and a real Valenti diamond at her throat. He's terrorizing the dog again, Lily said, pointing to the lawn, where Leo, now 4, was chasing a massive Rottweiler. He's a Valenti, Daniel chuckled, wrapping an arm around her waist. He's fearless. He gets that from his uncle, Lily said, leaning her head on his shoulder. And his mother, Daniel corrected. They watched the sun set over the empire they now ruled together. The war was over. The enemies were buried or imprisoned. Daniel turned to her. I never asked you, that night at the diner. If you hadn't dropped the locket, would you have ever told me? Lily smiled a mysterious, dangerous smile that belonged to the Queen of Chicago. Some secrets, she whispered, pulling him in for a kiss, are meant to be dropped. And that is the story of how a clumsy mistake in a rusty diner changed the fate of an entire city. Lily Harper went from serving coffee to ruling an empire, proving that sometimes the strongest armor isn't made of Kevlar, but of love and loyalty. Daniel found the one thing money couldn't buy a family worth dying for. If you enjoyed this twist-filled Mafia romance, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. What did you think of Arthur's betrayal? Did you suspect him? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see more stories about underdogs rising to power, don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching.